What we have right here is the Uprising from Enlightened Equipment. Very similar to the Revolt, but there are some very distinct changes or differences that are very important for more experienced users, giving them a little bit more adjustability and just a little bit lighter weight. So we'll talk about a few of those things in today's video. Let's go ahead and start with the shape. This quilt is not a rectangle like the Revolt. It is actually tapered at both ends, giving you a little bit lighter weight, a little bit less material. But at the same time, it's going to make it a little bit harder to get it dialed in just right for, your foot placement, your head placement or shoulder placement, depending how long the quilt is on you. A couple of things, but they've put a couple things on this quilt to help with that. One is the early exit shock cord. So notice the end of the quilt is over here, and they have a secondary shock cord that actually exits about a third of the way down the body. And depending which end you use for your feet, or which side you sleep with your feet on, you can adjust a little hook. My version, the prototype, just has a mitten hook on it. The actual version for sale has a mini combo hook, but you can use a little knot in that you can adjust left and right, and depending where your foot placement is, you can bring this up to your ridge line, clip it up there, and it brings that section of the quilt in just a little bit, just kind of giving your feet a little bit better place to tuck their way in there. And then that can be removed very easily, put on the other side in case you sleep with your head left, feet right. Do the same thing, lifting up in that spot, giving your feet a little bit better place to settle in for the night. Did notice this is a little bit more finicky than something like a Revolt. That is more of a rectangle. One of my friends used this, and their first night they noticed they would wake up a few times and their feet would be outside of the quilt. So they just had to dial in the adjustments to get that in the right place, because you can slide that hook along the entire length and get it dialed in just right. And once it's set, you're all good to go. Just like with all their other quilts, the suspension system is extremely easy to adjust. They have little line locks here with the shock cord. So as you notice right now how low it's hanging on my hammock. It also does have the draft collars on both ends. But the adjustments on that, super simple. Pulling the shock cord up with the line lock on both sides. You can get it lifted up toward the ends, tighten up a little bit. But there's also a shock cord that runs right here all the way around. So if I really wanted to cinch this up, tuck that draft collar in, I can really seal up that foot box right up here around my hammock for no air gaps. Another feature that gives this a little bit lighter weight, a little bit less overall material, is the tapered shape and a little bit less down in the foot area. Here I have my quilt actually hanging on my ridge line, and that's hanging right down the center of the quilt. So when I mentioned earlier it's more of a tapered shape, you can see that now, especially over here at the foot end. You can see it definitely comes up to a much narrower piece. And I don't know if you can really tell in the video as much, but there's really a line like right here. That's where the downfill definitely changes. So from here up, we've got our regular fill. From right about here on down the rest of the foot end, that's where we've got the much lighter down. So it makes the whole quilt lighter, a little less material, and overall just a smaller footprint, easier to pack. This hasn't been an issue for me. Potentially people using things like down booties, an inflatable pad, or as I learned from Shug, which is something I do in very cold weather, I end up taking my jacket, which I don't wear when I sleep because I'm a fairly warm sleeper, pull the sleeves inside out, and you actually just zip this around your foot box. If I can get it over there. There we go. So now the sleeves are tucked inside, giving you that little bit extra insulation as well. And you've got an extra layer over your feet, which for me completely works with the less down in the foot area, because I've got the extra layer with my down coat or any other material. Also, this could be a way for you to, tuck in your extra pairs of gloves or anything that you don't wear when you're sleeping, tuck them in there and give your feet some extra insulation, since they did go lighter on the down in the foot area. Setup for the Uprising is extremely easy. You have all of the shock cord come together in one little mini carabiner, and I typically just start with it inside my hammock, run it around the outside, and this is actually the perfect length. Right now I have it all dialed in for my Wilderness Logic's Night Owl. So simply clip that right on the end of the hammock, right where my continuous loop goes through the channel. Do the same thing on the other side. Find that mini carabiner, run it up, flip it on, simply flip it out, tuck your hammock inside. This is where you can make all those simple adjustments using the line locks. If I need it moved further this way, simply can lengthen the shock cord on this side with those line locks, like so. Pull it up this direction, and then make any final adjustments, whether it's tightening it up, cinching up the foot box, the shoulder area, which also has draft collars in there that you can tuck in, cinch up. And again, since I sleep head to the right, feet to the left, my little mitten hook is here on the left-hand side, which comes right here. Right now, this is a little bit further to the head than I normally do, but I just wanted to show you that for the video. So if I move this back to where I sleep, the great thing is, when I'm laying in the hammock, I can sit up, reach this little hook, and I can actually slide it along here and make that adjustment to make it fit perfectly. And I just clip to my ridge line, and it lifts that end. You can't really notice it now when there's no weight in the hammock, but you'll notice when you lay there, it picks it up, and it kind of makes that little extra pocket for your feet so they don't slip out as easy. But like I said earlier, you have to dial that in, and it's just a little bit more finicky than a Revolt or some of the more rectangular underquilts. I'll give you a close-up of some of the parts and features that I mentioned. Here's the mitten hook that I mentioned, which is hooked to shock cord that exits about a third of the way down the body. And it allows you to lift up on whichever side you put your feet, making a little bit better pocket for your feet. And that hook can be adjusted up and down the shock cord. Here, we've got the line locks on the end for actually moving the whole quilt, either toward the foot end or toward the head end, and also just overall tightening it up. And the shock cord allows it to have that enough give when you get into the hammock to kind of self-adjust a little bit. And hidden back here, here's the shock cord with a little buckle. I guess I call it a buckle. And that's for cinching up the foot box. You see the draft collar tucked inside there. Hold everything nice and tight up against the hammock. We make our way down. There it is, light and equipment. Same thing, this side you can see a lot easier. For right now, my head end, all of my shock cord to cinch everything up around the draft collar is all nice and loose. So you can see, here's all the adjustment points right there. We got the two for cinching up against the draft collar. Then you have the two line locks for pulling for the shock cord, adjust it to each end. And then there's even another mitten hook on this end. It helps you to pull up whichever end. So again, I sleep head to the right, so it helps pull up my head end just a little bit more, giving that little bit pocket for my shoulder. And last, coming over to the other side, it's all connected right here with this little mini carabiner. And this is the continuous loop that I have on the end of my Wilderness Logic's Night Owl hammock. Clips right there, runs down, and there's all my adjustment points right there. One other thing I wanted to point out is I have the Naughty Mod on my Night Owl. And so right here, this is my little pocket for my feet. And my mint hook is on this side, so it's easy for me to get those matched up as I'm putting it in there. So right here's my mint hook connected to this left side as we're looking at it, and then there's my knotty mod to make a little pocket. Same thing with my head end. Right there's the knotty mod for my shoulder and head area, and then right there is where the suspension exits. So I can cinch the draft collar right there, right around my shoulders, and be good to go with my head right there at the end of the hammock.